No, I'm very excited. As I mentioned earlier, I'm the director of operations for the Dollywood Foundation. So I get to work with a lot of great team members at the Dollywood Foundation, local partners and affiliates, the premier publisher in the world, Penguin Random House, who are here with us today. And occasionally, we get to interact with authors and illustrators at events like these. So, Dolly being a creative person herself, you may or may not know that she actually sends a personalized thank you letter to each and every author and illustrator in every country when their book is selected to be in the program. So that says a lot, I think, about Dolly, but without, for their creative talents, it's rare that we have an author or an illustrator that's in multiple countries for the Imagination Library, because not only does it have to make it through one book selection committee, has to make it through multiple book selection committees to be represented across multiple countries. So our final guest is one of those special authors, and I'm very excited to introduce the fabulous Miss Sophy Henn.
Thank you. Oh, I get to hold a microphone. Break into song. Oh yeah, can we? We can do a little keyboard number. Sorry. There we go. Thank you very much. Thank you. Can you all hear me? Okay, I've got quite a loud voice, I've been told by my daughter, so it'll probably be okay, even microphone free. Anyway, hello, I am indeed Sophy Henn, and an author and illustrator, and here are some of my picture books that I have authored and illustrated. Like probably everyone here, I feel I can safely say that I've always loved books. Here's photographic evidence of that, of me and my mum enjoying Chicken Little. So you can imagine how surprised and delighted I am to be up here today. And I thought I'd tell you a little bit about how I got to be up here today. So, starting at the beginning, one of my favourite books when I was little was, along with Chicken Little, was Cops and Robbers, the Janet and Alan Allberg book. And as a child, I loved and delighted in its wickedness, its rhythm and repeated refrain of ho ho. And something about that book obviously stuck with me because I grew up and into loving The Secret Seven by Enid Blyton. They were my favourite, not so much The Famous Five. I liked The Secret Seven. They were based in a shed and I had a shed, so anything was possible. And I was always on the lookout for a mystery of my own, but sadly there were no horse smugglers or paint forgers on the mean streets of Surrey. And while I still love a good murder mystery, I then found myself suddenly reading Just 17, Smash Hits, Sweet Valley High, and all the important bits of Judy Blume. And maybe it was a DIY shorts article in Just 17, but I found myself looking towards a career in fashion, but fashion journalism. And so I went off to do my degree in that. And but I discovered whilst on my degree that I like comfortable shoes too much. I just didn't have that real desire to do fashion, which was definitely needed. And so after a really encouraging pep talk from my dad, which went along the lines of get a job, I took to the classifieds and I misunderstood an advert, which was a great start to my career in advertising. And I found myself being an art director in advertising. But sadly, I can't claim these ads as my own. But while I was working in advertising and around things like this, I started to realise the combined power of a few well-chosen words and a strong image, and that they could convey so much more when they were put together and in far quicker than they could on their own. And then this happened. She's really happy that I show this to people quite often as well. She loves it. Now she's 16. And I soon found myself reading her the books that I had loved when I was little, and then some new ones that we discovered together. And I found myself scouring the shops and libraries and searching out more and more to feed my habit. It was definitely my habit by this point. And this is when I was discovering new styles, and Charlie and Lola was brand new then, and I found that really exciting. And I started to see these books not just as great ways for me and Missy to sit down and bond while reading them, but also as forms of communication and design in their own right. And so I might have admitted to myself at this point that I quite fancied having a go at doing this myself. So, I chickened out and I started a greetings card company, but I was still pairing these images with a few words, and I'm realising that when I combined the two, they could become quite powerful indeed. And also I was trying to resurrect my illustration skills. So I finally bit the bullet, and in order to validate my intentions to become a picture book writer and illustrator, I went back to school and I enrolled in a part-time MA. I found that nothing galvanizes your thoughts like having to stand up in front of a room of 50 of your peers and tell them all about them. And I was so super keen and super nervous. I'd been out of education for quite a while at that point, and everyone else seemed to know exactly what they were doing and how to do it. But as those 2 years turned into 3 years, I slowly realised that I wasn't such a total novice, and that everything I'd done before had actually informed what I was trying to do now. All the reading and looking, the advertising, the greetings cards, and the acts of putting an image together with a few words to make something grab the viewer and convey emotion, story, humour in a very fast and direct way. And I stumbled on this quote, which I think sums it all up really well. Pictures and picture books are an important part of the meaning-making process. Reading pictures is just as complex, perhaps more complex than reading print. It can also be just as rewarding as reading print. When two symbolic systems work together, satisfaction, enjoyment, and stimulation is more than doubled. In a world that relies increasingly on visual means of communication, picture books have established themselves as a complex literary genre in which both verbal and visual cues structure meaning. And this is why I slightly despair when I hear, and I hear it more often than I'd like, I hear grown-ups telling children that they're too old for picture books, to put them down and find a book without pictures in it. This is an actual fact now. You're never too old for picture books. And I think picture books are becoming more and more exciting, and people are really challenging the medium and using it in so many interesting and different ways that they surely appeal to all ages. So, back to the MA, where I got distracted from my picture book project by creating a comic for Key Stage 1 and 2 girls. It was an alternative to the very image, product and boy-heavy ones that were available. But I also absent-mindedly painted this picture. It was in the kitchen on a Saturday afternoon with everything going on around me. This picture just popped out of my head and onto the page. It was a little white bear in a big dark forest, and he looked rather lost. And I'm often asked where my ideas come from, and the answer is all kinds of weird and different places. And this is one of those moments. I wasn't expecting to have an idea, and I certainly wasn't trying to have one. And I wondered where this bear was supposed to be. He looked like he didn't think he belonged there either. And so this idea was sort of like rolling around in the back of my head. And he travelled through my sketchbook. As you can see, he changed many, many times. And then he ended up like this, and became my first picture book, Werebear. So with Werebear, I wanted to create a book that showcased how when faced with a problem that adults might ponder and wrangle and hand-wring over, a child often sees straight to the heart of it and can be incredibly black and white about the solution. We often underestimate children's ability to perceive problems and find solutions in them. And hopefully this book reinforces their ability to do so. It's also a book about friendship and how when you truly are truly friends, you want the best for them, and sometimes that might not mean exactly what you want yourself. So I couldn't believe my luck. I'd got one book out there, and then Parton asked me for another. So after panicking a bit, I rummaged through my sketchbooks and found this, back to humiliating my daughter a bit again, which was a comic strip I'd drawn after said very pretty, lovely little girl had had one of those moments. I'm sure everyone in here is familiar with those. And it was telling everyone to go away, and repeatedly, go away. And then finally, everyone did go away, at which point she peeked her head round the door and said, "Hello, where is everyone?" And was a little bit worried. And call me mean, call me sleep deprived, probably a combination of the two. I found that funny. And I thought, well, maybe this little comic strip is the kernel of an idea. So I was aware that I was going to be living with my daughter for a considerable amount of time. So I thought, right, I'll change her into a panda, as you do. And I felt the contrast of a very cute and cuddly little animal who doesn't love baby pandas, but being absolutely furious was quite funny. So he travelled through my sketchbooks, turning into a comic strip at one point, and then turning into Pom Pom. And my second book, Pom Pom Gets the Grumps. So being a toddler is really tough. There's so much coming at you all the time. New social situations, new emotions, new things that you're supposed to deal with. And there's so many options of how to deal with them. Getting the right one's pretty tricky. So Pom Pom aims to sort of look at those and show that, yes, this fury that surprises both, I think, the parent and the child when it manifests. Everyone's a bit like, wow, what was that? It's okay. You're not the only one. Lots of kids experience it, and actually, if you look at it the right way, it can be quite funny. But it's interesting when I'm reading this to children at events, and we get to this crescendo of Pom Pom screaming, "Go away!" at everyone. Everyone's like, "Oh!" Like the daring of it. It's kind of a buzz around the room. But then when I switch to this slide, you can hear a pin drop. Because what's worse to a sort of 3 to 7 year old than being alone in a crowded space? So Pom Pom hopefully reassures, comforts, and makes everyone laugh a bit as well. So he's, as I said, being a toddler's tough. There are many toddler situations, so there have been a few Pom Pom books. So then I had thinking about more books, trying to come up with more ideas. And as I say, they can come from anywhere, all kinds of strange places. And I was trying to write a different book entirely. And the word happy just kept popping into my head. I was really struggling with a character for this book. I think maybe it was because everything that was happening in the world at the time didn't seem to be ever so happy. So maybe that's why I wanted to create a book that focused on happiness. But I couldn't think of my main character, and I looked up from my desk where I have a big notice board full of images and saw this picture of one of my very good friends when they were little. And I'm not sure you could be more happy than that. I don't know. I don't think so. Cowboy hat, summer's evening, life is sweet. So I turned him into a girl. He didn't mind. And then that became my main character for Pass It On. And as I said, I think this book's born out of maybe the world having a bit of a funny moment, but wanting to reassure children that they have the power within them to change that, to have an impact on that, to have a positive impact on that, one little gesture at a time. So that was Pass It On. And then Edie, which I understand you have copies of, and I very much hope you like. I really loved writing Edie. It was inspired by all of those little friends of my daughter's, with that really joyous, positive, confident, can-do attitude that many small children have. They're often little girls, and often I find big sisters have this as well, from being the big sister and helping their younger siblings. And I wanted to celebrate the joy and the fun in that. And we have Edie going through helping everyone. And then ideas can just come from doodles. I can just be sitting and drawing. I draw a lot of bears, you might have realised. Pretty ladies. Or just a shape that grows a body. Pay attention to this bit, we'll be coming back to that later. That grows some ears and arms and legs, and maybe even some features. And once I'm happy with that doodle, I'll hop over to my computer. And this is what happened with this particular character. And I noticed that when his ears were up, he looked quite happy. But when he was sad, when they were down, he looked rather sad. So happy, sad, not sure. So I realised that this character had a lot of potential through his ears, who knew, to show his emotion. And it turns out that this character was called George, and he's the main character of my latest picture book called Almost Anything. And this is about a rabbit who is so worried about getting things wrong that he doesn't even give himself a try. Fortunately, he has a friend called Bear who has a plan. But I think we've all seen kids like this, who, on the outskirts of the action, looking a bit downcast, wanting to give it a go, but being so frightened of getting it wrong that they don't even try. So hopefully, with George, he will show them that it's okay to try again, it's okay to get it wrong, it's okay. And that's why it was called Almost Anything, because I didn't want it to be anything. You know, that's a lot of pressure. You can do anything. It's like, wow, what, all of it? So that's why I wanted to call it Almost Anything, so everyone can find their thing that it's that they're good at. And that also, by making mistakes, whole new ideas and journeys can start. So this is one of the messages I take when I go into schools and do events. And I want children to leave those events empowered, ambitious, and obviously aching from all the lols we've had along the way. Each and everyone knowing that they're super in their very own special way. And that being super doesn't mean being the best, it just means being super and having a good go. So I realised that alongside all the careers I've had that inform my dream job as a children's writer and illustrator and entertainer, I did not see that bit coming. There was one that I'd overlooked, and that was being a mum. Everyone comes to this job from different angles, but this is certainly mine. A friend pointed out that each of my books are really like little letters to my daughter as she was growing up. And it turns out that I write books to hopefully entertain, but also to comfort, to reassure and empower. And that's why I love the Dollywood Foundation and the many literacy charities and organisations that it works with. Having done a bit of chatting on behalf of some organisations and charities, I know the incredible power and foothold literacy gives a child, that it extends way beyond the walls of the classroom. I love what you are doing, the commitment and the passion that you do it with, and the fabulousness you bring to it. I mean, who else has rhinestone name badges? Come on. So, with that in mind, have we got time? Are we good for time? Yay! While I've been yakking on, hopefully there's been some paper and chalk and things delivered to your table. I'm going to move over here. Shall I just use my loud voice now? Shout. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. And I'll grab my pencil case. We're going to draw George step by step.
I'm not going to look at George.
So, everyone should have, thank you, a nice piece of brown paper. Marvellous.
It's really going to be short.
And a piece of chalk. And a pencil.
And a pencil.
We're going to start with the chalk, if that's okay. So what we'll do is, I do this with all the kids, and I always start by saying, hands up who can draw. All put your hands up, because everyone can draw. This is a fact. So everyone put your hands up, hands up, hands up. Yay! So everyone can draw. So one shape at a time, we're going to draw George. So has everyone got all the bits and bobs that they need? Yeah? Brilliant. Okay, so we're going to start with George's face, which I usually describe as a squished circle. So a circle that has been squished that way. So we're going to start with George's head. I'll draw it up here. This is the point I realise I haven't left enough room for his ears. So there we go. Just going to draw that shape. You might want to draw yours a little bit further down on the page, so you've got lots of them to do. And then colour it in with your chalk. Oh, sorry. There we go. I will have to turn my back on you a little while I'm drawing though, but only because then it will look like George and I won't look like a total fraud standing up there. Can everyone see? Is that okay? Can everyone see? Right. So we have George's head. Now we're going to draw George's body, which is a bit like a deflated balloon. So if we do his neck first, we'll draw two lines coming down. Excuse me for turning my back on you, coming down like that. And then a nice big round rabbity tummy. Like that, there we go. And we're also going to colour that in, so you can do what I've done, which is have about 4 runs up, 4 attempts at it, and then colour it in. Now everyone will end up with their own beautiful and unique George, okay? So, marvellous. Okay. Now we're going to draw George's legs. So quite peculiar to start with. We're going to draw two very squished circles either side of his body. So we're going to draw one here, like that. And then we're going to draw one up here, slightly higher up, like that. And it's fine, because if you smudge the chalk, he just looks like he's really fluffy, like he's just had a blow dry or something, so it's fine. So then we're going to colour those in. There we go. Now we're going to draw, are we all okay? Awesome. We're going to draw George's giant rabbity feet. So we're going to draw one really long now. The rabbity feet, they're at the top of an oval, but with a flat base. Half an oval, that's what that is. So we're going to draw a nice curve coming out there, and then a flat base that looks on the ground. And then the other foot, we're going to draw that with our higher leg. Curve coming up like that. So draw our other half an oval up there, because George is in fact dancing. Yeah, I'm not starting with the easy stuff, we're going straight into the action drawing. Can you see? Okay, there we go. Let's have a look. Okay, so now we're going to draw George's arms, which are sausage shapes. So we're going to draw one curved sausage coming up here. Like that.
I can draw worms, I can draw rabbits. I'm ready to go.
And then another one.
By his neck.
Exactly the same the other side.
Is this by his neck, his shoulder?
I've drawn his foot at a rather steep angle, never mind. Just proving that no matter how many times you draw the same thing, it always comes out a little bit different. Okay, so this is the point at which I say, and what's missing? He's here! So the bigger the better. I think George is dancing, he's happy, he's here, he's hanging out with the Dollywood Foundation. We're going to draw some giant rabbity ears like that. Get a bit of movement in there, there we go. Giant rabbity ears. And then colour those in. Yours is better than mine. Yours is better than mine. I'm really annoyed down to that bit. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it go. So now we've drawn his all the George. We need to do the details. So you should also have some pinkish reddish crayons. So up his ears, we're just going to draw a little zigzag line like that. Don't be neat. Don't overthink it. Just a nice zigzag hair like that. There we go. And then you can give him some little pads on his paws up there. Now we're going to draw his face, but keep that pink crayon. Are we all good? I must say, I paid very good attention. I have to maybe raise my voice a couple of times by now. You're very well behaved. Gold stars all round. So now we're going to draw his face. We're going to start with George's eyes. Squished circles again. So we're going to draw two squished circles, sort of halfway down his face. Oh, sorry, yes, pencil. Absolutely right. Sorry. Yes, grab your pencils. Two squished circles, halfway down his face, there. Lower than you probably think they see. There we go. Can you see over there? Sorry.
It's like this is
Okay, back round here. There we go. Now we're going to draw George's nose, which is an upside down triangle, which I suppose depends on which way you started out. Anyway, it's the flat bit at the top, and then coming down to a point, like that. There we go. His little rabbity nose. And then we're going to draw that bit. I keep needing to find out what it's called. Oh, sorry, it's a triangle with a point downwards. There we go. So, yeah, so the flat bit of the triangle at the top, going down to a point. And then we're going to draw that little bit. I don't know what that's called. If anyone knows, please come and tell me afterwards, because I keep needing to find it. So we're going to draw just a little line. A philtrum. Yay! Thank you very much. So we're going to draw the philtrum now. Do that all along. And it's a little line there. So we're going to draw that just under his nose. And then we're going to give him a nice smile. But because he's dancing and he's so happy, once we've drawn the smile, if we just join the top of the smile up, so draw your smile. It's getting very small, isn't it? Draw your smile, and if you join the top of your smile up, he's actually laughing. Can you colour that in? Sorry, it is getting very small. Sorry, like that would make all the difference. That foot has changed everything. So yeah, so draw your smile, and then join the top up and colour it in. So George is actually lolling. My daughter somewhere is just going, oh, she doesn't know why. I'm embarrassing her from afar. So also, very important when we're drawing any sort of expression is the eyebrows. So we can cross eyebrows, and so always stressing the importance of drawing good eyebrows. And George is so happy, he's having such a lovely time. His eyebrows are nearly off the top of his head. So we're going to draw two little eyebrows. Can you see where I'm drawing them? Right at the top of his head there. There we go, over there. Right up at the top there. Two little curves, like that. Now, that's the, oh yes. Eyebrows in place. Now, we're going back to the pinkish crayon. Rosy cheeks. Little circles underneath his eyes. Little rosy cheeks. He's busting some moves. It's warm. It is warm. Now we're going to take the side of our pencils, not the tippy pointy bit, but use the side, and we're going to draw some shading underneath him. So we know that George isn't just dancing in space, he is actually dancing on the surface, on something, on the ground. There we go. Hear the shading. Fantastic. And now the very important bit that I always stress to children at the end is you have to sign. But you can't just write your name, you have to sign it with your special illustrator/artist signature. And this can be as scriggly as you want, because you don't want anyone copying it. And I find it's quite good, I can do mine without looking. So there you go. So you have to sign it with your special illustrator artist signature. Don't overthink it, just go with it. Just go with it. So now, you're not going to get away with it, the children don't, so you're certainly not. Hold up your rabbits, please, for you to have a look at. Oh, they're better than mine! This is outrageous! Fantastic! So give yourselves a big round of applause because you're now all officially. My time is now up, so thank you so much, and I really hope you've enjoyed it. And yeah, right, see you in a minute. Thank you.